To save a nation, start with education. This is our ideology. Throughout history, there are countless examples of how being uneducated has directly affected nations of people. The effects of being uneducated sees no boundaries, as the color of our skin or the religion we practice does not save us from ignorance. One major example in history is the Black Plague. The Black Plague killed without discretion. Being uneducated about the cause of the problem only compounded the problem, killing a huge percentage of the world population. Today we have a plague of sorts, the infant mortality rate, where in some countries it is as high as 94 per 1,000 babies. To save a nation, start with education. Diarrhea kills about 2,000 kids every day, more than AIDS, malaria, and measles combined. Diarrhea is the second leading cause of death among children under 5, accounting for 1 in 9 deaths worldwide. This is a nation of people dying every year. Our mission at To Save a Nation Start with Education is expose the atrocities of being ignorant and to inspire the hearts and minds of the people to educate themselves. We will do this by providing classes on personal growth, finance, history, travel, and provide books on the same. To hold true to our name, To Save a Nation Start with Education, we have a bookstore, so inspired minds have an opportunity to expand their knowledge base. Without a clear understanding of history, then we are forced to abide by the governing body's depiction of history. When I was in grade school, my teacher taught the class one of the most important aspects of history to remember. This is his story. When I was younger, I comprehended the phrase but not the true meaning of the phrase. It would be irresponsible for me to speak on behalf of all the nations and people of the world. However, many of you may share the same beliefs and perspectives as I do. Growing up black in America, we were only taught the curriculum in school. However, that curriculum did not give a young black male any role models to aspire to become. Yes, we had Black History Month and Martin Luther King Day, but those few moments a year did not allow me to build an identity for myself. What I learned was that we were slaves and Martin Luther King had a dream. Even now, when you Google Black history, you see two things: slavery and Martin Luther King. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it is not enough information to form an identity and a culture. As I got older, the phrase my teacher first introduced to me started to make more sense. It's not easy to find information about my story as it is to find out information about his story. As I have traveled all over the world, but only in the Americas, North, South, and Central America, do I see red black people stemming from the Native Americans and Africans. The Americas was a melting pot of Africa. There is no other time in history that so many different nations, cultures, and distance the entire west coast of Africa and Europe and the entire east coast of the Americas were brought together. So my story, is a collaboration of those nations combined. My vision is to teach the people interested more in my story and less interested in learning about his story. The suppression of knowledge and education has been a major tool used throughout history. Whether we are discussing the burning of the Great Library, destroying some 40,000 scrolls, or the record of having British concentration camps in Kenya for the Mau Mau prisoners after the Geneva Convention, it has forced the world to only know his story, the story of the conqueror. The consequences of this archaic way of teaching and living is we destroy the my stories of the world, having a dramatic effect on the future. If Diego de Lande Calderon did not burn most of the Mayan manuscripts, we would have a much better understanding of their culture and the great accomplishments we still to this day cannot match. Today, we see this in extreme societies, the aftermath of the suppression of knowledge, the constant arrest of Baha'is in Iran for aspiring to obtain an education, the North Korean regime In the Congo, in Africa, where King Leopold enslaved the entire region to make Belgium a first class nation. To save a nation, start with education. Our mission is to help the My Stories be told. In doing so, we hope to find a common bond, a sort of camaraderie amongst the many nations around the world who have been dismissed in his story. A common overlooked aspect in global change is personal growth. Quoting Michael Jackson, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And the message could have not been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. If we don't like the situation we are in, then the person we have to change is ourselves. By taking a closer look internally, we allow ourselves to make the necessary changes to grow. I understand this can be a daunting task. This is why To Save a Nation, Start with Education is providing individual resources or invaluable resources to assist in the process of self-growth. In my life, I have been faced with constant trials and tribulations. Whether we are discussing adoption, death, self-doubt, self-sabotage, or being sent away from friends and family, my story encompasses it all. It gives me great hope that my personal story will give moral support or inspiration to those who feel feel alone or in an overwhelming situation. I still remember the feeling of helplessness I felt when I lost my mom only months after losing my dad. The feeling of abandonment by being sent to programs after losing my parents. And the confused feeling of finding a place in life that comes with adoption. Allow To Save a Nation, Start with Education to be the backbone in your amazing personal growth journey through our books, classes, newsletter, and bookstore. Education of today is outdated. Learning only from a book does not give us full understanding. With today's technology, we have the ability to provide amazing videos. Teaching about a bridge is amazing, but showing all the different types of bridges in video will give a much longer impression on the minds of the youth. With that theory in mind, To Save a Nation, Start with Education is going to travel the world to share firsthand experiences. As we have already discussed, books in the modern education system is skewed to the perspective of the conquerors. When we travel, our mission is to find and teach the histories of the conquered peoples of the world. As it is easiest to talk about oneself, I will use myself as an example. While traveling in Spain, I came across a palace and took the tour. What was interesting during the tour was a banner with 3 black people on it. I asked the tour guide who they were. He casually told me in 1492, Queen Isabella and King Fernando defeated the Moors, and the banner had the 3 kings on it. If you then take a closer look at the dates and the beginning of my story, in 1502, the Spanish throne approved the use of African slaves in the New World. Then in 1502, the Spanish crown ordered all Muslims forcibly converted to Christianity, and Portugal brings its first shipload of Africans slaves to the Western Hemisphere. But what is most interesting part in my story is in 1526, the first group of Africans in the United States were with a Spanish explorer, was in South Carolina. During a tour in Charleston, South Carolina, the tour guide pointed out that the South Carolina flag, there was an inverted crescent moon, which, as we know, the crescent moon is a symbol of Islam. And the palmetto tree, the symbol of South Carolina since the American Revolutionary War, when it was used to build a fort on Sullivan Island, that withstood the British attack. But as we know, Sullivan Island's real cause of existence was to quarantine new imported slaves, as 80% of slaves entered through Sullivan Island. Could this be a hidden message from the conquered nations to never forget their struggle? Through traveling and using technology, I can present a more accurate description of the past through the eyes of the conquered nations. There has never been another time in history like this. The world has become interconnected in only a way dreamed of in the past. With a click of the button, information is sent from one side of the globe to the other. This very doctrine will be seen all over Asia, Africa, North America, and South America. How grand of an opportunity we have been blessed with to share and enhance our very existence. To save a nation, start with education, understands this amazing opportunity and wants to exploit this rare opportunity to advance all societies who just as short as 5 years ago did not have this opportunity. The internet is an unstoppable force, which has not even begun to mature into the giant it will become. To save a nation, start with education's mission is to teach the masses how to generate income with the help of the internet. All you need is a smartphone and the correct education. The opportunities include affiliate marketing, dropshipping, print on demand, educational training, and much more. Not only does this create a great opportunity for the conquered nations of the world to advance, it will also allow for greater technological advancement at an even faster rate. The many skills people have are invaluable to the human race. The lonely fisherman in Madagascar may have information to help the lonely fisherman in Paglet, South Carolina. The more I travel, the more I'm amazed with the ingenuity cultures have to solve everyday problems. These same solutions can and will help advance the world. To save a nation, start with education will serve as an intermediary between these great minds and the world. There's a saying, if all the money was distributed equally throughout the world, the same 10% would emerge to hierarchy. The reason is simple, education. I fall victim to this very thing. I own a pair of Jordan shoes, but I do not own a share of Nike stock. The 10% tell us to buy the shoes while they buy the stock. To save a nation, start with education's goal is to develop a new frame of thinking for the masses. Invest their earnings into assets which appreciate over time opposed to depreciate. A starting reality is Black America owned more land in America in the early 1900s than we do today. Mismanagement of money and assets is a serious problem and a leading cause for the wealth gap. With such a bold statement, to save a nation, start with education, has provided classes on investments and will continue to provide invaluable resources to stop this cancerous mismanagement of money. Until now, the only way to obtain higher education was to attend a very pricey university, making the process of obtaining an education difficult, if not impossible, for many nations of people who just do not have the disposable income. Yes, scholarships have helped, but when faced with the situation of attaining an education or caring for a family, the mention of higher education is laughable, reserved only for the elite members of society. Second by second, the internet is changing this. While at Harvard, I was introduced with an economic term, catch-up growth. The idea of convergence in economics, also sometimes known as catch-up effect, is the hypothesis that poorer economies' per capita incomes will tend to grow at faster rates than richer incomes. As a result, all economies should eventually converge in terms of per capita income. The modern economic definition does not explain the magnitude of this term. When To Save a Nation, Start with Education discusses this term, we visualize the full array associated with this term, the endless opportunities and the indescribable value the internet brings to catch up growth. Libraries are a great source of information, but they are either a public institution ran by the government or a private membership-based institution, universities. If the said government in any community does not have funding to provide a library and the university is highly private, the common individual does not have access to education. To further this example, imagine the same individual has an innovative mind. They're able to fix things around the village or the house without any formal training, but they have a problem. In the Western world, it is easy to say, go to the library or Google it. I was in a village of about 5,000 people in Africa with my iPhone, and just Google it or go to the library was not an option. I was having problems keeping a charge on my phone. Steve Jobs imagined a world where everyone in the world had a computer. I had my iPhone with me, but it was not enough. Now that we understand the problem too many people are faced with today, it is even if they have their computer, not all nations have the infrastructure to add other variables to Steve Jobs' dream, the internet and a steady source of electricity. America, one of the most resourceful nations in the world, still has problems finding money for education, as it is always the first budget to get a cut. If the situation in America is that unfortunate, I dare not imagine other less fortunate nations' regards when it comes to education. To save a nation, start with education. We have a solution to this problem. For-profit research center. I know I said the dirty phrase, for-profit, but I ask, how has the charitable way been faring? It goes with the saying, give a man a fish he will eat for a day. Teach a man to fish he will eat for a lifetime. That saying is actually plausible now. The knowledge the same person from the village, given the correct training and equipment, camera, lights, computer, internet, can now provide their knowledge to the world for sale, changing the entire dynamics of the world and achieving catch-up growth. You see, teach a man to fish. Great revolutionary ideas have never been achieved without the masses. Imagine with me as I explain my revolutionary idea. We agree there are numerous ways to generate revenue online. We also agree internet usage is growing daily. I propose having a vast network of research centers worldwide. In these research centers, we will have a vast array of books. To save a nation, Start with Education has already started accumulating books through its bookstore. Computers, in the search of Bill Gates or Sergey Brin. Music instruments, the next Beethoven or Bach could be discovered. Art studios inspired by Pablo Picasso or Michelangelo. Music studios to find the successor of Tupac's wisdom or Mariah Carey's voice. An athletic compound to develop the next Jesse Owens or Abibi Bilkila. A studio to find great minds like Marcus Aurelius. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Or Herman Melville, we cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with other fellow men, and along those fibers are some sympathetic threads. Our actions run as causes, and they come back to us as effect. As the world gets smaller, let us unite as one nation and teach the world to fish. Thank you, and good night.